Hello guys, good morning. Today we are going to discuss the post-Marxian analysis of religion. We will also specially look at the ideas of Otto Maduro in detail. Not all Marxists saw religion as a conservative force. For example, Friedrich Engels, a close colleague of Marx, suggested that religion had a dual character. It could act as a conservative force, but it was also possible for it to challenge the status quo and encourage social change. A number of Neo-Marxist writers have further developed this idea. Ernst Bloch wrote about the principle of hope. He argued that religions offered people the idea of a better sort of society, a glimpse of utopia. While Bloch was an atheist, he thought that religious faith was misplaced. He saw in it a hope for a better sort of society and a belief that people should be able to have dignity and live a good life in a good society. At the risk of oversimplifying Bloch's work, we can say it includes the idea that the hope for a better world is inherent in the religious belief, and this can influence the desire for better things on earth, to build a heaven on earth or a new Jerusalem. This can help rally people to organize to bring about revolutionary social change. We have another neo-Marxist, Antonio Gramsci, who was an Italian Marxist. He agreed with Marx, Lenin and Althusser that religion played a part in that it contributed to the hegemonic control of the ruling class. However, like Engels, Gramsci did not think that this was the only role religion could play. Workers were able to organize against the hegemony and develop a counter-hegemony. Just as religion could be useful for building the bourgeois hegemony, it could also be useful for building a counter-hegemony led by organic individuals. For Gramsci, religious leaders could take the role of organic individuals, building a counter-hegemony, popularizing ideas that ran counter to those of the ruling class and helping to build rebellion and protest. Two examples of religious leaders acting like Gramsci's organic intellectuals and using ideas in religion to campaign for significant change are Martin Luther King and the liberation theologians of Latin America. In the case of Martin Luther King, the churches provided sanctuary for campaigners and became local campaigning hubs. The use of supportive biblical verses shamed white clergy and congregations into supporting the movement. It was hard to ignore or argue with clear commands such as love thy neighbor. Similarly, statements that are deep in the American psyche, such as all men are born equal before God, took on a new significance in the light of the campaign. The Catholic Church in some Latin American countries performed a clearly political role in protecting people from fascist oppression and helping to organize a fight back. This movement was known as liberation theology. Now let us look at Otto Maduro's idea in detail. Otto Maduro was born 1945 and died 2013. He was born in Venezuela in Latin America. He was committed to the basic ethos of liberation theology. He tells that Christianity forces the people to the commitment of the ruling class and the elite. He attempts to reformulate Marx, especially social and economic ideas. Otto Maduro spells out in three ways his understanding of religion. First, he says religion is a product of social conflict. No religion exists in vacuum. It is situated geographically, historically, and socially. Therefore, religion is determined by geographical, historical, and social factors. It does not operate within as infinite set of alternatives, but it operates with a finite set of alternatives. It is situated in the society, and the central structure of the society is a mode of production. This mode of production represents the indispensable necessity of the people. There are two modes of production. Communitarian mode of production, which means all have access to the means of production and there is equality. Asymmetric mode of production means only a minority have power to determine the means of production, where they try to produce what they want. Maduro compares religion as the asymmetric mode of production. This lends to the polarization of society into unequal classes, the dominant minority and the dominated majority. The minority promotes hegemony, use power and suppress. but the majority wants autonomy from the hegemony of the minority. The second point Otto speaks of religion is that it is the terrain of conflict. All religions basically produce the means of salvation. In other words, religion produces meaning. The meaning of human existence is apparent. This means framing a kind of worldview. We must also have a whole set of practices which sustain this worldview. Religion is involved in the effort of providing salvation. Every human being longs for this salvation. The instruments of this production are sacred books and dogmas. Initially, religious production of salvation is a community affair, where all have equal access to the means of this religious production. Later on, religious production becomes specialized and differentiated. A body of specialized people take over production and they control the religious production. This body is known as clergy, and this leads to the monopoly of the clergy. The clergy is the dominant minority and the lay persons are the dominated majority. So there is a division between clergy and laity. Further, he says, the clergy are divided into two types, higher clergy and lower clergy. The higher clergy's interests are not the interests of the lower clergy, so there is a conflict. The higher clergy has a monopoly over the means of religious production, and they would produce what they like. But the lower clergy are only the salesmen, and they must sell the products of the higher clergy and convince people to buy it. Among the lay people too, there are two groups, dominant minority and dominated majority. The higher clergy would produce to satisfy the need of the dominant majority of the lay persons. Here all groups' needs are satisfied but unequally and incompletely. They would carry on giving, but the dominant minority would get in full and the dominated majority would get less and be less satisfied. The third point he would like to speak of religion is that it is an active agent of social conflict. Social functions are the consequences of religions. Religion can function as an instrument of hegemony as well as autonomy. The dominant class will establish relationship of affinity with clergy, and so there would be a bond between higher clergy and the dominant laity, and the dominant laity would get what they want. According to Maduro, the instruments of domination are family strategies, economic strategies, juridical political strategies, educational or cultural strategies, and finally repressive strategies. According to him, the instruments of liberation are a worldview that is aimed at producing prophetic role, class organization, and class mobilization. So religion can both be an instrument of domination and of liberation. If we tap the liberative aspect, prophecy plays an important role because prophecy is an attempt to overthrow the hegemonic power in religion. We have discussed so far the post-Marxian analysis of religion. In the next lecture, we will discuss Max Weber's understanding of religion. Thanks for your attention. Cheers.